What happens the moment you die? The moment of death has long been a topic of fascination, speculation, and deep philosophical inquiry. It's the threshold between life and whatever exists on the other side. In some ways, the experience of death is as mysterious as life itself. But what exactly happens the moment you die, and how do science, culture, and philosophy explain it? Let's dive in, starting with the biological process, moving through the psychological perspective, and ending with a look at how different cultures have framed the moment of death. The biological moment of death. To truly understand what happens when you die, it's essential to begin with biology. Death is often defined as the cessation of biological functions that sustain life. While many might assume that death happens in an instant, the truth is a little more complex. Death can be considered in terms of two key stages: clinical death and biological death. Clinical death. This is the first stage, when the heart stops beating and blood circulation halts. This is often what people mean when they talk about someone having died. The cessation of the heart's beating results in a lack of oxygen flowing to the brain and other vital organs. Without oxygen, brain cells begin to die very quickly, typically within 3 to 5 minutes. Interestingly, the moment the heart stops, many of us experience a series of physical phenomena that scientists have tried to study. In the absence of blood flow, the body begins to cool, a process called rigor mortis, or the cooling of the body. The muscles, which are still receiving tiny electrical impulses for a brief period after death, may twitch, leading to phenomena like post-mortem spasms. In some cases, when death is prolonged or when the process happens slowly, the body might go through a process known as rigor mortis, where the muscles stiffen as chemical reactions occur within the cells. This typically starts about 2 to 4 hours after death and peaks around 12 hours later before beginning to fade. This stiffness is caused by a lack of ATP, the molecule that provides energy to muscle fibers, which causes them to contract. Biological death. While clinical death refers to the cessation of heartbeat and breathing, biological death goes a step further. It marks the point at which the cells of the body, especially those in the brain, are no longer viable. This typically happens after a period of time, depending on environmental conditions like temperature and the presence of oxygen. Once brain cells are deprived of oxygen for long enough, they begin to undergo irreversible changes. This is when a person is truly dead on a cellular level, with no chance of revival. Some fascinating things happen during this stage. The brain's electrical activity, which had been functioning just seconds before death, ceases. However, in a paradoxical twist, studies have shown that there's often a brief surge of activity in the brain as it shuts down, which is sometimes interpreted as a life review by those who have had near-death experiences. The psychological experience of dying. The experience of death is not purely biological, as there are psychological and perceptual aspects to it as well. When someone dies, especially in the case of those who have had near-death experiences, NDEs, their consciousness might seem to undergo a dramatic transformation. Some people who have had NDEs report an incredible sense of peace, often describing it as a feeling of floating or detaching from the body. Many describe what is known as an out-of-body experience, OBE, where they find themselves able to observe their own body from above or from the side. This can happen in medical situations, particularly when someone has been resuscitated, and though it's not fully understood, scientists have hypothesized that it could be a result of the brain processing the trauma of death or a way for the mind to cope with the transition. A hallmark of many NDEs is the tunnel of light experience. Individuals often describe traveling through a dark tunnel toward a bright light at the end. Some report a feeling of being drawn toward this light, and others feel like they are moving toward a place of ultimate peace. Psychologists suggest that this sensation might stem from changes in brain chemistry and the body's attempt to reconcile the end of consciousness. There are also psychological elements tied to death anxiety. According to research in thanatology, the study of death, people who are closer to death or have been in life-threatening situations may experience varying levels of fear, peace, or acceptance. People often talk about letting go, which can happen as the fear and anxiety surrounding death begin to subside, replaced by a sense of acceptance or even calm. the cultural and spiritual dimensions, while science can describe the biological processes of death with a fair degree of certainty, many aspects of the moment of death are beyond the reach of empirical understanding. For centuries, different cultures have framed death in a variety of ways, often interpreting it through a spiritual lens. Afterlife beliefs. One of the central questions humanity has struggled with is whether there's life after death. Various religions and belief systems provide different answers. In Christianity, the moment of death is often associated with the soul's judgment, either ascending to heaven or descending to hell. In Hinduism, it's believed that the soul enters a cycle of reincarnation, moving through various life forms until it reaches moksha, liberation. Buddhism offers a similar view, with the ultimate goal being to escape the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth through enlightenment. Islam shares some similarities with Christianity in that it emphasizes a moment of judgment after death. The soul is believed to cross the barzakh, a barrier between life and the afterlife, before being sent to either paradise or hell based on one's deeds during their lifetime. The concept of an eternal soul. Across various belief systems, there is a shared assumption that humans possess an eternal soul or essence that continues after death. The idea that something of you continues, whether in heaven, reincarnated, or in some other realm, is deeply ingrained in many cultural and religious practices. In ancient Egypt, for instance, the concept of the afterlife was paramount, and the journey to the afterlife was a carefully constructed, sacred process. The body was preserved through mummification, and elaborate funerary rituals were conducted to ensure the soul's safe passage. The final moments. In many cultures, the moment of death is treated with great reverence. Some cultures have specific rituals for preparing the body or conducting prayers or ceremonies around the time of death to honor the deceased and ease their journey. In many cultures, especially in Asia, the moment of death is considered sacred, and the family may perform specific rites immediately after death occurs to help guide the deceased's spirit to the next stage, whatever that may be. In Western cultures, the focus is often on grieving and memorializing the dead through funerals, wakes, and the creation of monuments. But regardless of cultural context, there is typically an acknowledgement that the moment of death is both a loss and a transition, marking the end of one life and the beginning of whatever comes next. The unknown. Despite all of the scientific, psychological, and spiritual explanations we have for what happens when we die, there remains an undeniable mystery at the core of the human experience. No one has come back to fully explain the moment of death in a way that satisfies both science and religion. Some scientists speculate that consciousness is tied to the brain's physical processes, while others wonder if it could exist independently of the body. Theories of the quantum soul propose that consciousness could transcend the brain entirely. Many people who experience near-death situations have profound personal revelations about the nature of consciousness, the universe, and their place in it. Some come back from these experiences profoundly changed, with a greater sense of peace, a diminished fear of death, or an enhanced sense of the spiritual. Ultimately, the moment of death is an incredibly personal and mysterious event, both for the individual passing and for those left behind. Whether the end is quiet and natural, traumatic and sudden, or accompanied by strange phenomena, the moment of death will always be a boundary we can't fully cross until we reach it. And perhaps that is part of the beauty of